Hello, everybody. It's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course, I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. So we are at the very, very tail end of August, and we've got a lot of kids going off to either school or college right now. Plus, we are heading out of the Olympic season, and I am still kind of in a sports movie mode, and I thought, why not combine the two things? So today I have two collegiate sport films for you. These are both comedies, and they kind of exemplify how sports films do a really, really good job of putting together amazing ensemble casts. Whether you're talking about comedy or drama, these films just sort of generate really, really good, solid characterization in a group. You might have a main character or you might not. It might be many points of view, and it always seems to work really, really well. And I don't know if it's because team sports are just sort of built that way or if it's just some sort of odd cinematic magic that happens. In any case, as always, these two films are available to you entirely for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card. So without any further ado, let's get to the Rex. Okay, the first film I want to recommend today is available via our Canopy service, and that is 2016's Everybody Wants Some. So Everybody Wants Some takes place in Texas in the 1980s, and we kind of see a lot of the happenings of the films through the eyes of this incoming freshman who is about to join the baseball team. As I mentioned before, this is a true ensemble film, so we see lots of points of view, but I guess the primary viewpoint is from this college freshman. We get immersed into lifestyle of the 80s, collegiate sports lifestyle in particular, and we see him go through these first few months of university life and see how he acclimates himself, how he develops friendships, how he relates to upperclassmen, how he stumbles through his very first romance in college, and just in general embraces life in the 80s as a student athlete. And this film is a lot of fun. Like a lot of 80s films, even though this is made in 2016, there's a lot of bodiness to it. And then you throw in like locker room humor as well. So you do have like some very testosterone driven moments, but it is still at heart like very, very funny. And you do feel very much put in the place of a 1980s sports team. And I really, really liked that aspect of it. As I mentioned before, this is a true ensemble film. Like, while we as the viewer may come at it from the point of view of this college freshman, you definitely see so much more going on with upperclassmen, other college freshmen, other students who aren't athletes. So you get like a pretty broad view of this Texas universe in the 80s. And I just had a lot of fun with it. So Everybody Wants Some is sort of Richard Linklater, the director's 80s version of his 70s hit Dazed and Confused. If you are a film buff, you've probably seen Dazed and Confused. It was sort of like this very 70s immersive style story. And this is kind of the 1980s answer to that. I do think it's pretty effective in that regard. You have like very well done production crew stuff. Like the fashion is really fantastic. There's a scene where they go to like a 1980s like disco dance hall, and like the music, and I watched a few behind the scenes interviews and clips. They actually taught the kids, not kids, some of them are full on adults, they just happen to look younger. They actually like taught them how you would have danced in the 1980s, like the way you would have worn your hair, the way you would have put on makeup. Like it's super interesting how they really immersed the cast into the time period as well. Like they wanted it to be a really authentic experience, and it definitely comes across. The other thing that I thought was really cool, I talked a little bit about how like the body locker room humor stuff goes, and one of the actors in a behind the scenes interview was talking about how it became such an immersive thing that he found himself during downtime, the guys would just sort of talk just like they would in a locker room. Like, he found himself like almost reflecting back and thinking, I would never ever say these things under normal circumstances, but he had been so in that moment that that's just, I guess, like what becomes your vernacular. So in that regard, excellent job, I guess. I talked a lot about the ensemble and how, it's very much a film where everybody gets this moment, and the cast is made up of some really, really solid performers who've been in tons of things. One of the actors is Glenn Powell, who this summer in particular and last summer has seen a huge amount of success. He was the lead in the new Twisters sequel. He was also in Anyone But You, big time rom-com. I think that a lot of people said it was like a really throwback style, and I really enjoyed it too. So FYI, check out Anyone But You. And I did not realize he was in this until I saw his face. It was kind of like, oh, I think that's Glenn Powell. And there he was. He was actually the actor who was talking about like how the locker room talk kind of invaded his brain. Tyler Hoechlin is in this. He's probably best known at this moment from Superman and Lois. He plays Clark Kent Superman. He was also in Teen Wolf and the television series. And he actually was a baseball star when he was in college. He was actually aiming for the major leagues, and an injury sort of pulled him out of that. Blake Jenner from Glee, he's the freshman that we kind of see through his initial point of view at the beginning of the film. He plays one of the athletes. Austin Amello from The Walking Dead is in here. I believe he was Dwight in The Walking Dead. And several other people from tons and tons of movies and television series that you've probably seen before are also part of that ensemble cast. And because you don't have any like huge like headlining lead character, everybody has a chance to sort of shine and contribute. And I really loved that about this. Yes, you have people who sort of make a bigger impact on screen, but at no point is it like, oh, this is a Glenn Powell film. Oh, this is a Tyler Hoechlin film. Oh, this is a Blake Jenner movie. It's not like that. And I really, really love when movies are able to sort of make everybody the star. Not because like I think films should be fair. I just happen to like ensemble cast movies, and this really works well for me. So if you're looking for something super immersive, that's funny, that's kind of a throwback to like an 80s style film, because it definitely feels like, those 80s movies like Porky's and whatnot, like that raunchy kind of humor. Check out Everybody Wants Some. Like, there's some highbrow elements to it, which I can appreciate, like the juxtaposition of those things, but it really leans hard into 1980s style, and I am absolutely here for it. Okay, my other recommendation for today is available via our Hoopla service, and that is 1991's Necessary Roughness. So Necessary Roughness is a really, really fun collegiate football film. We are put into this world where this particular college football team has to be essentially started over from the ground up. All of the previous members were essentially expelled due to a cheating scandal. And so the two big new coaches, Wally Riggendorf, played by Robert Loggia, and Ed Genero, played by Hector Elizondo, who is fabulous as always, end up sort of putting together this team made of characters essentially from the land of misfit toys, and it is amazing. Their big quarterback is actually a guy named Paul Blake, played by Scott Bakula, who years and years ago had been a star football player, and then before his senior year had to leave college due to some family responsibilities, and is actually still eligible to play. So they bring him on for one final year. There's a junior professor, played by Sinbad, who I haven't seen in years, but is great in this. who is also somehow eligible to play for another year. And those are just like the football oriented characters. You also have a couple, there's a guy who is actually a martial artist that they bring onto the team. Another guy who's a crazy good runner but can't catch to save his life. They find on the soccer team a female place kicker who helps save them, and they're just some really, really fun, terribly over the top moments that I absolutely adore, and that make it like a really great comedy that I do think is very much a product of the early 90s. So Necessary Roughness is at heart quite a sweet comedic sports film. It's not bawdy or raunchy at all. It's much more straightforward. You have, of course, like I said, all of these different kinds of characters coming together. You have a second chance romance in this. I am a sucker for a second chance romance. I don't care if it's in books, if it's in movies, TV series. I am always all about it. And it's really sweet in this. I really like it a lot. I was really drawn to those two characters in particular. And, you know, I love when a sports film can really like definitely focus on a sporting element, but also throw in these other things and have it feel still cohesive. Very enjoyable for me, like Bull Durham. Plenty of the other like classic 80s and 90s sports films did the same thing. So like I said, very much a product of its time. I would say if you've seen Major League, like it definitely has that kind of a vibe to it. Definitely a little softer and fluffier than that, but certainly that kind of rapid fire humor, a little bit over the top, but still works. That kind of thing. The cast is really, really fun. Like I said, I love Hector Elizondo. He's that guy you see all over the place in tons of movies. And he's always really reliable to play a character who has a dry wit about him. Scott Bakula is great. I was a huge fan of Quantum Leap. I even watched the NCIS that he was on. I'm not an NCIS fan, but I watched it because I thought I've been a fan of his since I was a kid, and he's a great lead, though even as the lead character, it's still very much, again, an ensemble film. You have Harley Jane Kozak playing his love interest. She was in Parenthood. If you watched Parenthood, she was Rick Moranis' wife in that. Sinbad, I already mentioned. I feel like Sinbad should have been in so many more movies. He's so funny. You've got Jason Bateman is in this. He plays one of the football players. I think I mentioned Kathy Ireland already. And then the villain of the piece is played by Larry Miller, who has had an absolutely brilliant career playing either like jerks or put upon fathers, and he definitely is in the former category here. He was the dad, he was Kat's dad, Julia Stiles' father in 10 Things I Hate About You. I think like people from my generation definitely would recognize his face, but he's always so funny. Like one of those character actors that slips into a cast and just owns his role no matter what. And like I said, he's either a jerk or a put upon father, sometimes the same at once, and he's amazing at it. He is a fantastic villain in this, and he tonally really works with the rest of the cast in the movie itself. So if you're looking for something kind of light, really funny, that still has that sort of like excitement of a sports film, but also has romantic elements, make sure you check out Necessary Roughness. It's definitely an older movie, but one that I think is worth watching and a lot of fun. Okay, so those were my 2 recommendations for this week. If you happen to have any recommendations for collegiate sport movies, please pop those in the comments. I, as mentioned before, am definitely still in a sports movie mode, so I'm looking for more movies about sporting teams. If you have any recommendations for themes you'd like to see us cover in the future, definitely recommend those as well. Always looking for help in that regard. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a blast watching these films and putting this list together. I always do, and it gives me a chance to really explore everything that our digital catalog has to offer. We have so many movies available on there. I strongly recommend you check out both the services, both Hoopla and Canopy. They're fantastic. And again, totally free if you have a Milan-Berlin library card. So once more, thanks so much for joining me today, and hopefully I will see you next week. Bye-bye.